Hello, and welcome to That Eurovision podcast. Eurovision with a slice of life. My name is Rory, and I am doing pretty well today, actually. It's nice and sunny outside, but I'm cooped up inside giving you fantastic content, so I mean, that's totally fine with me. And with me,
Hi, I'm Rosie. And I'm also pretty good today. I still haven't left my dressing gown, but that's just quarantine life. And I'm sat here on my break from work at the moment, sort of dotting between two screens. And yeah, happy to be taking a break from emails to provide you with some top quality controversy.
ooh, give us a bit of a hint of what's going to be coming later on today.
Hi, my name's Jazzy. I'm doing pretty good today. I've not really done very much. I've been out in the garden, like just getting some sun, but apart from that, not really been doing very much today.
Hi, it's Tim here. Same with Abby. I'm currently on my lunch break, and I just thought, you know what? Instead of just watching TV, I might as well vent my opinions out on a Eurovision opinion, which you'll find out very shortly.
Yeah, so we're actually going to be talking about a country that everyone seems to love, but given how we've introduced ourselves, I have a feeling that it might not be that way very soon. uh, and in this case, it is the almighty Sweden, Sverige, SVT, vi har ett resultat, everything like that. So, Sweden is quite possibly one of the newest sort of powerhouses of recent times. They were doing somewhat relatively well in the 2000s, but the one non qualification in 2010 actually has sparked a big change in their fortunes. Coming third three times in the past decade, winning two times, and being in the top 10 practically every single year since, with the exception of 2013. So the actual first entry from Sweden was in 1958, and it was Alice Babs with the song Lilla Stjärna. I hope I said that right. My Swedish definitely needs a little bit of brushing up, I think. And yeah, and they've actually managed to rack up 6 wins in their overall participation in the contest, which means that they are the one country that is challenging Ireland for that all-time record of most wins by a Eurovision country. So, what I want to know is, who were your favourite Swedish entries of all time?
I feel like there can only really be one answer to that, and if it's not Waterloo by ABBA, then I don't know where your taste is, to be quite honest.
Oh!
Oh,
Ooh, awkward.
Oh.
oh,
I mean, it is a good song. It is a good song.
I think it's so iconic, just given the entire history of the contest, and not just the history of the contest, but of music generally. ABBA is such a powerhouse. There's something that's really enduring about it that I find really special, and it's also just great fun.
It is, honestly, whenever it comes on at like a disco or something like that, you just know that everyone's just gonna get involved. Everyone just loves it.
I feel like it's sort of transcended that Eurovision barrier as well.
I think I have quite a few favorite entries from Sweden. Waterloo obviously sticking out as like it became this big international hit. Everybody knows Waterloo. Um, but other songs that I really like are obviously Euphoria, Loreen. Again, I think that also made movements in changing some aspects of the contest. Maybe like modernizing it a little bit more to like maybe attracting some younger audiences like that maybe weren't there before, but are definitely there now in the last 8 years. Other favourites of mine would be obviously Too Late for Love. Like I know that some people aren't the biggest fan of that song, but I personally it just makes me happy when I listen to it. I think in a Eurovision song, that's one of the things I really look out for. Just a song that makes me smile and gives me that enjoyment.
For me, I'm gonna take a mixture of both. Definitely ABBA. You know what? I've known Waterloo for so long. and I didn't even know it was a Eurovision winning song until I found out about Eurovision. And I only knew that information because of Loreen, because Loreen was the start of me delving myself deep into the Eurovision fandom. Hence why Loreen is at the top of my list, because if I had not heard Euphoria that night, I would not be in this fandom.
I think it's so nice though, isn't it, when just some songs just help you discover so much about something that you would never have known of, really. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
so lovely, really, just because it's so inclusive. And I mean, yeah, for me personally, Euphoria and Waterloo, of course, they're absolute bangers, and rightfully so. But actually, my sort of favourite songs from Sweden are very few and far between. My main kind of era of liking Swedish songs was kind of 2008 to 2010. So we're talking about Charlotte Perrelli, Malena Ernman, and Anna Bergendahl. Now, "This Is My Life" is currently my favourite Swedish Eurovision song, but had the Mamas have actually gone to Eurovision, I do think that probably would have been my favourite Swedish act of all time. That just might be me, but I feel like with Sweden it's very hit or miss for sure. But that's just how I see it.
Completely back the Mamas as a canon entry. I feel like the fact that we're getting an official album this year means that the songs are official canon. So,
So does that technically
and
mean that
also
they
it's a
went?
great song.
I mean, I'm gonna pretend that they went then in that case. So that means my
Well,
Yeah.
to be fair though, they're on the Eurovision page. They're classified as the 2020 participants. So technically,
And they
they're classed as a participant. They're just not. They just
weren't
don't have a
able.
result.
Yeah, like they definitely class as a participant. They're making a whole show for them, so I think they definitely count.
Also, Move is a tune,
It
and
is.
100% support that.
Okay, I have to do a little bit of move love here. Mostly, I think it's just because it's in the same vein of what they would usually sing anyway. So like in terms of like the gospel sound, we knew that anyway because they were like obviously the background singers of John Lundvik as well. So we know the sort of style that they would go for anyway. This literally doesn't feel like any different from their usual repertoire, which I think is fantastic. Which it means that they're staying true to their style, and I think that's really something to be commended,
Yeah,
especially in the grand scheme of Melodifestivalen.
like it feels like Move feels very authentic and very personal to them. Which I think there's been times where I'm not sure that from some of the Swedish artists that is the case. But with Move, I definitely feel that is the case, and I definitely like it a lot more than I do some more recent Swedish entries. And I just think like Move gives you like a real sense of togetherness, and I think it's one of those songs that when Eurovision parties start up again is really going to get people like up dancing and singing and just bringing people together.
I think so. Yeah, it just has that sort of let's get everyone up vibe. It's very all incorporating, and I think that's something that we definitely would need in this, especially once we're all out of it. I think.
I think it's a song that when we come out of this pandemic is going to have a lot of meaning for a lot of people, like within the fandom, and I think that's really special.
I've been going out on my government mandated exercise and I've been listening to it. I've just been belting it wherever I've
Same.
been walking. And it just gives you the biggest smile on your face.
Yeah.
I always try to do the dance moves at the same time, but it's really hard to do that while walking in a front but also trying to go sideways at the same time. It does look like you're having a bit of a fit. Um, but yeah, so Sweden's actual process for selecting its Eurovision representative is the mighty institution that is Melodifestivalen. It's by far and away the most popular Eurovision national selection in the entire season. So, what makes Melodifestivalen so popular?
It's quite sleek, it's quite polished, and they always seem to have. I think it's more of the fact that they know what they're doing. and they've kind of like perfected this little formula, and it works for them. So they continue with it, and they manage to do it with great success.
It's for them. It's a format that's been in place since 1959, like their second participation, and they've had like 60 plus years to perfect a format. So they like Sweden just know what works, and I think Sweden also heavily promote their show. Melodifestivalen is seen as probably one of the biggest TV shows in Sweden, like throughout the year. It's heavily promoted. Like it had, I think it even had. Well, I know it has like pre-shows before like the actual show. Like that's how popular it is in Sweden. And they also like they have their like shows in like arenas, and they like kind of like take it all over Sweden. So it feels like very inclusive. Like every single part of Sweden is included in within the selection, and I think it brings up a real sense of togetherness, and I think it just brings all of Sweden together.
Yeah, I think that makes sense really because Melodifestivalen it's primarily meant for Sweden, really. And I think everyone seems to kind of get on the bandwagon with it, and so they try to do their best to incorporate elements for the international fans as well as the Swedish fans. And that's why I think it's so popular with especially with Eurovision fans, because like you said, it's been developed for 60 years plus, and it doesn't seem to have been doing anything wrong so far, so why fix what's not broken?
I think it's just it's a mini Eurovision, and I think that's why so many enjoy watching it. But I've got a friend who is Swedish and a huge fan of both of them, and she actually refers to the main ESC as Melodifestivalen. Like for her, they're sort of synonymous with each other. So sort of you can't really disentangle one from the other. There's so much influence between the two of them, especially with how it's been in the last few years. It's sort of looked at as sort of how to do a national final and be successful.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense because I actually went to Stockholm in February of 2019, so just last year. And even when I was walking around the sort of the main squares of the city, there were still big signs of like saying buy your tickets to go see Melodifestivalen, because obviously it's held in the Friends Arena. So it is very much a Swedish attempt at replicating their own Eurovision, and I think that makes sense. So that that the terms are so similar and they're so interchangeable, because for I feel like for a lot of Swedes, they're just as big as each other, really.
No, but the thing is, like, it's not just that. Like, at every single town when I went there, it's they know they know how to attract the audience, to attract the press people. Because I've been on Melody Festival and its press, and they're ever so lovely and active. Whenever I went to Malmö for 2 years straight now, and they were really fantastic with everything. And the fact that kind of like SVT works with other entities as well, so like they work with the live promoters with like let's say Live Nation, because that's how you promote that Melody Festival is on. Go buy your tickets, and they also work with other brands as well. So like whenever you go, I don't I don't know if you guys ever been to a Melody Festival, but whenever you go in before you get to your seats, there's so many things that you're able to do and so many fun games you're able to try before you get to your seat. And it's so fascinating how like all these brands are like, work with Melody Festival to bring people together. And it kind of works.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, did
No,
you?
I
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah. It's like, yeah, they have like, what an example would be like, have you ever heard of the chocolate bar called Marabou?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't know if they do the I don't know if they stopped doing this, but like before, when you know how the running order is there, and an artist is like set to perform at seventh
Yeah.
position in the running order, Marabou would like send the artist a really big Marabou chocolate bar with like with like a, I don't know, maybe like a slogan and the number to ring up, so the artists would actually put it on their Instagram profile or thing.
That's cool.
I had
Yeah, I
no
know it's,
idea.
yeah. So it's all, they get some sort of, they kind of like work with other brands, and it kind of works well because they get exposure for their brand, and at the same time, they do fun stuff with like the during the Melody Festival and shows. And
Oh.
I've tried some of it. Even Coca-Cola was on there when I was in Malmö this year. They had like games and stuff where you can win prizes, and they had like even karaoke sing along. So if you haven't been to a Melody Festival and show, I'd recommend that you could go to one, and you can go have so much fun because the amount of games I've played whenever I go to a Melody Festival and show.
That's so interesting. I really need
Yeah.
to go and see a Melodifestivalen show now because
Yeah.
that sounds like a hoot.
It's really fascinating for me because I'm a complete sort of Melfest noob. My first actual watching of it was this year, so I'm still sort of amazed at what this format is like. It's something that was sort of mythologized to me beforehand, and I might have listened to one or two of the songs, but this was my first year really engaging with it. So actually knowing how it all is sort of backstage and things like that is absolutely fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So
Oh,
just for the podcast, Tim's just sent a video, a picture of. Is it? I was going to say Mallow but it's not Mallow is it?
It's Lisa
It's
Ajax.
Lisa Ajax. That's it.
Yeah,
Um,
so basically they get like a very very big chocolate bar, maybe like a little joke with their song. So kind of like this one. It was Lisa's 2019 entry saying, "I'll be torn if you don't vote," and the number to vote, and the number for the Swedish viewers to vote them in.
oh wow, that is fantastic. They've really managed to hammer in on that advertising, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
Oh my god. Well, I was actually going to ask, do you think, given how Melodifestivalen is such a big show now, do you think Sweden could ever go back, or at least go for an internal selection at least 1 year, or do you think that it would practically be impossible given how entrenched Melodifestivalen is in Swedish Eurovision culture?
It could happen, but I don't think it will happen for a very long time. Melody Festival is too successful for it to happen right now, and the fact that it's consistently bringing in advertisers, it's consistently bringing good ratings for them. Like you said, why fix something that's not broken? So I don't think Melody Festival would go away for a very long time.
It's an interesting point, to be fair, because obviously, when you mix the formula, obviously, with the advertising, it's creating a viable business. So why would you give up on the business? But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, maybe for the sake of, I don't know, really picky Eurovision fans that are saying, why don't they try something different? Maybe that could be something. I'd imagine maybe they would go for an internal selection maybe once their fortunes start to change in terms of results. So, say if they started performing really poorly and maybe even getting another couple of non qualifications, perhaps maybe they might think about doing an internal selection, but
Mm-hmm.
it would take like you said, it would probably take quite a long time to get to that
Yeah.
stage.
I mean, to be fair, they only NQ'd once, and they changed Melody Festival around it. So to think that they're gonna give up on Melody, that's not gonna happen. Because just because you don't qualify does not mean the show itself is not successful. Because if you think about it, it's still loved by Sweden, so that's not going to go away for a long time. And for us as international viewers, also like watching Melody Festival, and so it'll be a sad day if it gets cancelled.
like Melodifestivalen has like been ingrained in Swedish culture for like the last 60 years. I just don't see how they could just get rid of like 6 years worth of history and just go for an internal selection. Like the only way I could see it happening is they kept Melodifestivalen like as a separate show, and then internally selected someone for Eurovision and have the two separate. Like, I just couldn't see Sweden ever binning off Melodifestivalen. I just think it's so ingrained in the Swedish culture for so many years. I just don't think they could do it. Like, I just really don't. Like, the only like exception would maybe be in the next year if, say, we can't have the mass gathering still in like 2021. Like, that's the only way I could see an internal selection ever happen. But then I think in Sweden they'd find ways around. Like, it would take like a global event such as, say, the pandemic to maybe cancel Melodifestivalen this year. It wouldn't be anything to do with Eurovision results, because like Melodifestivalen is so rigorous. I don't see a scenario where it doesn't produce a good result. Like, they've never NQ'd in 9 years, and they've produced like 8 top 10 results in the decade. I just don't see a scenario where Melodifestivalen does Sweden, especially now that we have jury. Like, because their song will always be pleasing to a jury because they're polished, they're modern, and they're just songs that juries will typically watch. I don't see anyone.
I feel like I could have seen it happening maybe next year, and actually I feel like I'd like to see it happen next year because I really would like to see the Mamas on the Eurovision stage, but I know that that's not going to happen. But what they could have done instead is to do a Melodifestivalen sort of Champion of Champions, or a whole year of Andra Chansen, where all of the second places from the last few years come back and fight it out, and do some sort of celebration of the history of the contest, and then do an internal selection for the song for Eurovision without actually getting rid of Melodifestivalen as an entire concept. But I don't expect them to do that.
Yeah, I feel like it probably would get to a stage where, like, maybe the Swedish public would be like, oh, what, you can have these Champion of Champions coming back, but then none of these people can actually go and represent Sweden at Eurovision. I feel like that probably would cause a bit of outrage. It's probably best if that wasn't the case, but it's a really interesting concept. So another question is, who would you like to see either at Melodifestivalen or ending up representing Sweden? Who would be on your top list of artists?
How many do you want? Because I can go on forever.
Go for it. Go for it.
Okay, I can name of 3, just because of the fact that the latter part of the decade, Sweden has been kind of like been in a bad light kind of way, because of the fact that if you look at the list of participants from 2015 to 2019, do you know what they all have in common?
White male.
Not in 2019.
Oh yeah, maybe not 2019, but still male.
So yeah, 2015 to 2019 have one thing in common, is that they're all male participants. And I don't think that was kind of good. So, like, if I were given a chance to do it as a small scale event or internally select someone, I have 3 people. I have Molly Hammer, because she's so great, and she needs to reach the final at least once. Molly Sandon, because I want to see the glow up from junior to actual Eurovision. And finally, the one person that I think really want her to come, I really want her to actually try and win it, is Ace Wilder. Because she just served, and after serve, she just kept serving, and the international people loved it, but Sweden just doesn't like it. So those are my choices if I get given a chance.
I'm completely in agreement about wanting to see some more women, but I feel like I don't really have any names because, like I said, it's sort of been my first year following the contest, and I was the same as literally everyone else in the fandom and really got behind Anna Bergendahl and really got behind Dotter and really got behind the Mamas, and I love all 3 of them and I want to see them all do really, really well. But other than that, I don't really have sort of names that I can name, so I'm really excited to hear other people's recommendations.
For me, like, I really want to see Anna Bergendahl like redeem that nullification. Like, I think in Sweden it's seen as quite a dark moment in like Sweden's like history in Eurovision, and I would really just like to see her redeem that nullification, go to Eurovision and do really well in the final, because I think it would mean a lot. Other artists I would like to see go to Eurovision would obviously be Victoria. I just really like her song in Melodifestivalen, and I feel like we need to see more women from Sweden go to the Eurovision stage. And I feel like all that she has sent to the has been of like the same high quality of the, but for some reason the Swedish public or the jury just don't get behind. Although she has always qualified directly to final, which is a plus. I think women also have a hard time directly qualifying to the final. Obviously this year that wasn't the case, and I think women, it was a step in the right direction. 2020. So I just hope that we see more of the same, women doing very well.
I think, for me, I think definitely Ace Wilder needs to come back, because Busy Doing Nothing, while I didn't click with it straight away, it was actually a really good song coming back to it. My ultimate favourite from Ace Wilder, though, is Don't Worry. Just because it has that kind of quirkiness to it. Plus, as well, it did have that very intricate choreography. Now, I know Ace did say that it did cause her a lot of mental stress because she had to get everything right, and she felt like she was a big sort of favourite, and she didn't really want to have to recreate that whole stress, but on a far bigger level. So I understand why she was probably a bit thankful that she didn't end up winning that year. But that sort of style of music for her, I think, would be perfect. I think if she went, that would be great. Another person who I'd really love to see is Mariette. I think Mariette really deserves to go. I think Don't Stop Believing, A Million Years, I think they were actually really solid songs that actually were I wouldn't say they were robbed, but they were very much underappreciated. And plus, as well, who doesn't love a nice chilled woman? And literally, that is essentially everything that Mariette is. If I were to pick someone who wasn't from Melodifestivalen, I would love it if someone like, say, Zara Larsson did go. Obviously, that might be quite unlikely, just given the fact how popular she is. But given the fact that she did perform even on a Melodifestivalen as an interval act, I think it doesn't completely rule it out. I think it just makes it unlikely, but it is possible that maybe we might even see Zara Larsson come and maybe even win it all. Who knows? But I mean, there's so many fantastic artists in Sweden anyway, so I'm sure there's lots of different artists that we haven't even picked up on yet. So if there is any artists that you think we should be checking out, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Get in touch, obviously, with the social media as well, but we'll do that towards the end of the podcast. So, obviously, with Melodifestivalen being such a big institution, it's been under the guidance of Christer Björkman for quite some time. I know he was the head of delegation when Loreen won, and he's carried it on for such a long time, and he's even been instrumental in the running orders in Eurovision itself. But given the fact that Christer Björkman is supposed to be resigning in 2021, what do you think the future holds for, say, Melodifestivalen as a concept? Do you think that the quality will start to go up or down? What do you think will happen once he leaves?
I feel like it's hard to say until we know who the replacement's going to be. I feel like there's every opportunity that it could go in every which way possible.
Yeah, that's probably quite true, actually. Yeah, I didn't really think of that.
Yeah, it's like, we don't know who's replaced, and I just think it's very hard to predict, because SVT will still be in charge, and I think they will still have like people like on the sideline who are involved now, like helping select songs. So I would think the party would stay good and round about the same, but like, you just don't know what will happen, because we don't even know. Will he still resign regardless of whether Eurovision still can go ahead in 2020? I know that's a taboo subject, but I do
Don't
wonder.
speak the unspeakable. I think he did say that in a book that he had actually released. I think he did say that he was going to resign. But I mean, that's only something that I remember from a while ago. It may change since then.
I'd say for me, like, FYI, I just wanted to correct something. The current head of delegation for Sweden right now is forgot what her name was, Karen Gunnarsson.
Ah.
And to be
Damn
fair,
it, Karen.
I met Karen.
But to be fair though, she's been working under Christer Björkman's guidance. So I'm just gonna say that I wouldn't think that the quality would disappear straight. I think there's a way to keep going, because I think if she's been working closely with Christer in maintaining the level of quality of Melodifestivalen, I would not be surprised if it's kept at the same level. And so far, she was. I think I've seen her in Lisbon and in Tel Aviv, and she's done a great job in those two shows, like guiding the Swedish delegation over and bringing them to top 10 results. So I think it's still going to be the same. I mean, with whether or not Christer, not having Christer in Eurovision and having Christer in the American Song Contest would dwindle the quality Eurovision might have, I'm going to say I'm going to have to wait and see until what happens when he's fully gone. That's the only way we can tell.
I think when he does go, because obviously he's been such an instrumental part of even just the production of the show, helping out with the running order, and I think given the fact that he has had such a profound effect on especially the most recent contest, when he does end up going, I think maybe this is just a wishful thinking, or maybe not, I don't really know, but I think it could maybe just be a whole new era for the contest, because we won't have necessarily those sort of solid structures that we've always had for the past few years. So who knows, maybe we might even have the random draw come back at some point. I mean, who knows in that sense. But just one last question, I think, maybe before we start to wrap things up again. What do you think other countries should take from Sweden's approach to the contest? What do you think that some of these countries need to learn from Sweden in order to maybe better their results, or maybe better their perception of the contest?
Like, their enthusiasm is probably the biggest one. Like, the fact that so many people in Sweden are so up for getting behind their entry and for participating in the selection and interested in that. I feel like that is something that is so incredibly positive. But at the same time, I don't want to see a contest that's entirely full of Sweden-style, heavily produced pop music. I want that sort of diversity of things. So I don't want people to look at the entries that they're sending and go, that's what we need to send. I want them to look at the attitude behind the entries that they're sending and going, we really need to get behind the acts that we're sending. We really need to support them, and we need to get people invested in it. And if we can put that enthusiasm behind things, it's like what we were saying with the UK last week. We need to have that level of investment and care and support for the artists that we're sending. And if we can do that, then we can create an environment where the perceptions of the contest are different, where the results are different, and where it feels like something that is meaningful, and where it feels like something that is sort of worthwhile, really.
I'd say for me is that I know some people have some countries have have similar format. I mean, none of them are extreme as Lithuania, who goes like God knows how many months it goes on. But what I'd say for everyone, if they were thinking about like Sweden's way of doing things, maybe adapt it to their country and how it works, because you can't just copy off how Sweden does it hand for hand, thinking you get a great result when that is not normally the case. And I think that adapting it to the right market would be helpful because of the fact that if you market it to your way, then the audience like it, and in the end, root for the winning entry of the competition that is being held in that country. And the reason why I think it works well in Sweden is because of the fact that as Jassy said, it's already instilled to everyone, and the fact that people support it. I mean, you can even have 30,000 people in one Saturday night in a big arena. When would you get that for a Eurovision national final?
Right.
I don't think I've ever seen it that high. Someone prove me wrong, please. Someone prove me wrong.
It would. I couldn't ever see something like that happening here. The attitudes in both countries are just compared. If you compare the attitude here to the attitude in Sweden, you just wouldn't ever be able to one arena, let alone several arenas across the country. I think one thing that needs to take is just the attitude within the broadcaster, because I think Swedish broadcaster very much promotes Melodifestivalen and has a lot of pride towards its selection. It's a selection that's again got 60 years, and they have a lot of pride in that selection, so they're very happy to promote it. While here, there's people in the BBC, especially on radios, who won't even play us. It's all about adapting our attitude to just be more positive. I think then once you get positivity from within, that's when you're going to start to see better. But also for a national final, you need to have. It doesn't necessarily need to be the same. It just be a format that works for every individual country. Because I think there is other formats that do work for different countries, such as Norway. Norway typically produce concerts. I know they changed things this year, celebrate 60th anniversary.
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing again is just this changing the sentiment of it, because like you'd said, in the UK there's such a big idea that maybe we should do what Sweden does and then we'll get the good results. And I think that's why the UK really hasn't grasped how Sweden actually does it, because all they've really done is just imported Måns Zelmerlöw, and yes, he's a nice guy and everything, but just having him on a TV show doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be good, if you understand what I mean. And I don't mean that in a controversial way. I think it's more of a sense that having a Swede involved doesn't necessarily mean that your placements will go up, your results will go up. Sorry, go on.
I feel for a lot of countries that have tried to adapt the Swedish approach, it's not really worked out for them. A lot of the recent winners have had songs that are quite authentic to the country and have a national feel. You have the cultural feel from the country. Sweden, every single one of their songs, you can tell it's Swedish produced. So that's why they do well. It feels authentic to them.
The sound of someone who's read Rory's dissertation.
And then you have countries the songs 1944, APD, Toy, which all have that cultural identity from their individual country, and that's why they did well. So I think 41, 42 Swedish produced, that would make for a good contest. You can make a format based on that, but the songs still have to feel original to that individual country, because that's songs that tend to do that. Sweden does their songs feel authentic to them.
Yeah, I think that's another big thing. I think obviously a lot of countries try to replicate that Swedish magic by getting Swedes involved in the process will make things better, but it's not always going to be the way. I mean, look, for example, at 2012, Sweden had won with Euphoria, but also at the same time Norway came last, and that also had the same composer, Thomas Gesson, in both the winning entry and the losing entry. So just because you have a Swede, either your production team, your writing team, anything to do with that, doesn't necessarily guarantee it's going to be a good result. So I think...
Look at
And I think we've
John Lundvik the last couple of years, like 5th, last place last year, and also probably the most hated song by the fandom this year.
Oh, well, I mean, that's very true. That's very true.
I don't think I've heard anyone say a good word about The Best in Me.
you have countries like Azerbaijan who send a lot of Swedish produced songs, definitely in the more recent years, and you've seen like their results are never as good as Sweden, and it might be an authenticity issue. Like it does feel like it's authentic to Azerbaijan. Like you can tell that it's like a manufactured song they've tried to manufacture to do well, but it's not paid off as well for them as like it would for Sweden.
Yeah, and I think that mostly can be seen, especially in say 2017, when there was only one Swedish person involved, Sandra Björkman, and it felt a lot more representative of what Azerbaijan's actual like music sounded like. And in the same way, I guess you could also say Chingiz as well this year. Oh, sorry, not this year, last year. Because he came, 7th, and it had Azerbaijani instruments, but it still also sounded commercial. And I think that's what... Say, if you wanted to have that authenticity, you need to blend the ethnic instrumentalism with a commercial ability as well. So I think it's striking that balance that some countries either go hard and completely miss the point, or they don't go hard enough. It's a hard game to play, really. But are there any sort of closing points though on Sweden and what we think they can do?
Sweden just
word freaking in.
Oh, yeah, we look so freaking beautiful, guys. Oh my god.
oh
Wounds me to the core.
oh.
I hate it. I can't.
If I had to pick a least favourite Swedish entry,
Yeah, I mean, to quote a very famous Swedish person. I don't know if any of you know this person on Twitter, but at Lepland, he knows exactly what I'm on about.
Oh my god.
It's been 3 years. Get over it. I mean, Sweden's doing what it needs to do, and it's working out well for them. And honestly, I think some countries probably should be envious, but also at the same time, if everyone was doing the same thing, it would just be very dull and very boring and very samey. So I think it's really worth having the diversity that we have in the contest anyway. Maybe Sweden's fortunes will change in the coming years. I really can't say. None of us can really say. But hopefully, as with the way of these things, Ireland in the 1990s, Sweden in the 2010s, we could be coming onto a whole new era where another country completely sweeps the board. Whoever that will be, that'll be very interesting to see. So, are there any sort of final points then?
Sweden just shouldn't fix what at the moment isn't broken. Like, they get the results, they get the ratings, like, for their national final and for Eurovision. Like, for now, just leave everything as it is, because it's clearly working for them. Like, say in maybe 5 years' time, if things aren't working as well, then look at making changes. But at the moment, they don't need to.
And there's only one thing I'd say. Just make sure you keep sending the women and the bops, and then we're all good.
100%. Otherwise, we can't go on. just had to squeeze it in. Just had to. Oh dear. So this brings us to the end of that Eurovision podcast, the 3rd episode. Wow, I can't believe we've been going so long already. But I'd like to once again thank Rosie, Jazzy, and Tim for joining me again on this fantastic week of probable controversy. We'll see how that plays out. And for the meantime, please do follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at That Euro Podcast. And then in the next couple of weeks, we'll be continuing on with some of our country reviews. Who knows? We might even come out with a couple of other shocks and surprises. But you'll just have to tune in next week and listen. So, shall we all say farewell anyway?
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.